So, you think you want to become an archaeologist? Today I'm going to talk to you about what it actually takes to become an archaeologist, the kind of jobs that exist in archaeology, and the kind of jobs that you can find if maybe you majored in archaeology and anthropology, but you're deciding that this field isn't really right for you. My name is Jessica and I'm an archaeologist. I've been an archaeologist for about 10 years. I worked in every kind of archaeology you can think of: terrestrial, underwater, historic, prehistoric. If it's out there, I've tried it. And today I'm going to share with you some lessons that I've learned about why you should be an archaeologist, or maybe why you shouldn't become an archaeologist. And you can learn from my trials and tribulations so you don't have to experience them yourself. First, let's talk about what archaeology is and what archaeology isn't. Archaeology is the study of people from the past by looking at the things that they left behind. And archaeologists look at all different kinds of things. We look at shipwrecks under the sea, we look at trash in, garbage heaps, we look at old buildings. If it's something that humans have left behind, we can use that information to come up with assumptions and facts about what people's lives were like and how their lives might reflect and teach us lessons today. What archaeology is not is an excuse to get stuff. It is not an excuse to wear leather in the desert and go on swashbuckling adventures. And it is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Archaeology is a science, and like any other science, it's a hard-fought discipline, and it is not, an easy thing. It's something that you really have to be committed to, something that you really have to love. I like to equate archaeology to being an actor. You're gonna hear no way more than you're ever gonna hear yes, but the times that you hear yes are gonna make it all worth it. So there's three kinds of jobs that you can get in archaeology. Academic jobs at universities, being a professor, maybe working in a laboratory. Cultural resource management jobs. This is also called contract archaeology or salvage archaeology. It's the archaeology that's associated with new buildings, road, infrastructure, maybe military bases, anything that's going to happen where there might be a destructive process happening and they want to find out about what archaeological sites might be there before that destructive process happens. There's also working in museums, museum laboratories, and curation. And I'll get more into all of those things in a separate video, but those are the kind of traditional avenues that archaeology can take you down. So the first thing that you should ask yourself is why you want to become an archaeologist. A lot of people go out and watch Indiana Jones, and I'm sure that he is responsible for 90% of the people who become archaeologists since, that movie came out. But that's not really what archaeology is like. If you are thinking about archaeology because you want to travel all the time, you want to have adventures, you want to go into ruins, and you want to go after treasure, then I'm going to just stop you right now and tell you that archaeology is probably not the job for you. If you love history, you want to contribute to the historic record, you want to understand ancient peoples and culture, and the small, minute things that we don't understand about past societies fascinates you, then archaeology is definitely where you want to be. So there's a couple things that you need to get started in archaeology. You need to really love history. You need to love history, the historic record, learning about the details of past lives and past people, and how cultures and societies and individuals work, think, and function. If this is a way that you are thinking in your brain that you're going to get rich quick, I am here to tell you that that is not going to happen. Archaeology is a pretty low paying job, generally speaking, and that's, that's not really how this all works. You will need to go to some kind of higher education. In the United States, where I am, you will need at least a bachelor's degree. More likely, you will need a master's degree to actually be employed in archaeology. And this is unfortunate because a lot of the folks who, are now kind of some of the pillars of the archaeological community didn't have this requirement. I worked with some really fantastic archaeologists who did underwater sites, and they were picked up from a dive shop for their dive skills to then go translate that into archaeology. Some of the best historians and archaeologists I know are people who have found archaeology as a hobby after a career, and it's really, really their passion. With all that being said, you will need education. You will need at least a bachelor's degree, more likely a master's degree, because the other thing about archaeology is that it has its own little niches. So you have to kind of buckle down into one of those subsets of archaeology to really find a job later on. Another thing that you really need if you want to be an archaeologist is you should love to study. You will be studying for the rest of your life if you become an archaeologist. And I think this is true in a lot of fields, but archaeology has a lot of reading, a lot of writing. You're always going to be learning new things. Methods, technologies are constantly developing, and it's your responsibility as a professional to keep up with these things. So you will always, always, always be studying. So if you hate that, if you hate reading and you hate writing, then archaeology might not be the place for you. Another thing that you're going to need if you want to be an archaeologist is you're going to have to attend at least one field school. Field school is normally associated with your university, though there's plenty of field schools that you can go to as a volunteer or on an archaeological vacation to test it out. But field school is where you go somewhere and they actually teach you how to dig. They hand you a trowel and a shovel and normally a bucket, and you go out there and you learn how to physically excavate. And most people, this is a requirement for their degree, but some places it's not. But if you're going to dedicate your life to this, you better make sure that you really like that part of it, because I can tell you, sometimes digging in the dirt in the hot sun is not always the most fun thing. So you really need to test it out, see if you like it, go to that field school, maybe go to a couple field schools. The longer you're out there, the more experience you'll get, and the better it'll help you later on in your career. The next thing you're going to need is to be creative and learn how to make your own opportunities. There are not a ton of archaeology jobs out there. They definitely are out there, but it might not always look the way that you think it's going to look. It might not always be living on a, site in Egypt for 6 months. It could be staying in a hotel room day after day, walking up and down where a power line is going to be, digging holes every, 30 feet for weeks. So you'll need to be creative, and occasionally you'll need to make your own opportunities. And that might be volunteering on a dig at a museum and a curation facility. That might be being a tour guide or going to read to kids about archaeology books in a school. It's up to you to kind of find those opportunities in those niches, because unfortunately, like the rest of the job market, any job you apply for is going to ask what kind of experience you have. And so you need to create those experiences. But you also need to find ways to keep your passion alive for archaeology for those times when it might be a little more dull than what you were imagining. And the final thing that you're going to need to do is accept that your perspective is not the perspective. In archaeologists, we call this ethnocentrism. That the lens that you look at the world is not the only lens that's out there. The way that you see things happening and other people see things happening are not always going to match up. And that archaeology is a science, and that we make assumptions based on evidence. And the way you interpret one set of facts and evidence might not be the same way someone else does. So it's really important that when you go into archaeology, you go in with an open mind and understanding that your perspective is not the perspective. The other really great thing about archaeology and anthropology is that there are other jobs that you can do using the skills that you've learned as an archaeologist or in the anthropological sciences that can be applied to a whole bunch of other jobs. So maybe you are going through your archaeology course right now, you're almost about to graduate, and you're kind of thinking in your mind, you know what, this isn't really for me. That is okay. Archaeology can be your hobby. You can read about it, you can watch documentaries about it, and really appreciate it without it being your 9-to-5 job. A lot of people that I have met that studied archaeology or anthropology have gone on to have really great careers, because archaeology teaches you how to understand people, how to work with people, and how to have creative problem solving. So there's lots of people who study archaeology that end up in human resources, that end up in marketing and advertising, that end up in business administration. Again, it's up to you to be creative on how you're going to use your skills. So if you still want to be an archaeologist right now, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. below so that you can follow along with me as I walk you through archaeology. If you don't want to be an archaeologist but you still have archaeology as a passion, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button as well, and I'll keep you up to date with everything that's going on in the archaeological world, fun, new, exciting developments, and give you a behind the scenes look at what archaeology is like in all the subsets of archaeology. Bye guys.